What's going on, y'all? Chuck Nunface here, and as you can see on the table, I have a selection of ZT knives laid out here. So this is a video that I've wanted to do for a while, but I've also kind of not wanted to do for a while. Reason being, because as you see here, I've got some discontinued models, and then I have one current model in the 308. So I've got a 301, 303, O561, O909, and the O308. ZT, when they started making knives, they were proudly overbuilt in the USA, and they had different slogans over the years and everything else. Built like a tank, and go bold ZT and things like that. And over the years, especially probably in the last 3 or 4 years, the company's kind of taken a different direction into more the EDC friendly, a world of pocket friendly, performance oriented. And when I say performance, I mean maybe more towards pure cutting performance and things like that, which is ultimately what a knife is for. But they initially started out as very, very much overbuilt, heavy duty type of knives. And they really built up a big fan base, throughout that. And so, the company, they've taken this different direction, and for those of us that have liked ZT knives for a long time, it can be a little frustrating to watch. But I'll just kind of go through some of these. I mean, these are knives that I really like, these classic models and these discontinued models. And they are doing some things nowadays that are pretty cool as well. So, even though the company's kind of shifted gears a little bit, they've definitely still putting out some good things. So, this knife right here is of course I'm going to muff the opening. You may have noticed, since I didn't open it correctly, that this is, the ZT0301. Now, the O300 Series was designed in conjunction with Ken Onion and Mick Strider. So the Mick Strider influence isn't overly apparent on this. I mean, it does have the lock bar stabilizer, and it's got kind of the jimping, on the spine and everything else that is a little bit reminiscent of Mick Strider knives, but it really isn't a whole lot other than the fact that it is a frame lock that's really, that I can see at least. Maybe somebody can jump in on the comments and elaborate a little bit on Strider's influence on this, but it's primarily a Ken Onion design with that nice recurve there, and definitely designed for draw cuts and things like that. I wouldn't necessarily call this an overly tactical knife or anything like that, even though it is definitely overbuilt. I mean, when you look at it on the spine, it's got a nice thickness to it right there. Really robust frame lock knife, all TI, S30V. I believe these were first released in 2008. And honestly, I wish I could have gotten a few of them back then, but I didn't really have disposable knife money back then in 2008. So, but yeah, these are really, really definitely very cool. And they are speed safe knives. All right, so they're assisted opening. So that's ZT's assisted opening knives. So once you get them started, they fly right open. Now this is the O303, which still has the speed safe engaged, and it really does just fly right open. It's very, very easy and everything else. But a lot of people, they weren't really fans of the speed safe assisted opening. And so they want to de-assist their knives. Now, generally speaking, with the O566 and the O350 and things like that, you can de-assist them by just taking out the torsion bar. You open this up, and there's a bar that goes in there that links into the blade, and then it's got a spot where it clicks right into. And that tension, as soon as you push down on it, it'll go ahead and flip the blade right open, either using the thumb studs or the flipper tab. Now, however, this one I decided to go ahead and modify on my own, and because really, when you take out the torsion bar on these, it'll work, but there's no detent. Or I shouldn't say that. There is a detent ball in there. Maybe let's see if I can show it on camera. I might not be able to. It's a pretty small detent ball, but it is in there. But there's no hole in the blade where the detent can rest in the closed position. So you can't really build up any sort of tension on it. And also it can just flop right open very easily. So if you just have it in your pocket, or if you just, it'll basically, the blade will just flop right open because it really doesn't have the tension necessary. You can't preload it with anything because it doesn't have a detent hole drilled into the blade. So I kind of took it upon myself and drilled my own detent, I would say, divot in the blade. And it's fairly simple to do, at least to know where it goes. But I didn't really, in hindsight, looking back on it, I probably would have reached out to a buddy that had, like a drill press or something like that. Because I didn't have a drill press, I just used a hand drill, and I got some carbide drill bits and everything else, and it worked. But the sizing wasn't perfect. I kind of had to use my Dremel and kind of hollow it out a little bit because it's hardened steel. It is S30V, but it's hardened steel, so you can't just do it with regular old drill bits. It's not going to work. And a drill press certainly makes things a little bit easier as well. So, in doing so, it does have a significant amount of detent lash, which would probably drive a lot of people crazy. Frankly, it would drive me crazy too if this hadn't been something that I had done myself and I was okay with it. But it works really well, so I can thumb it out, no problem. I can use, I got to be pretty deliberate when I'm doing it, but I can go ahead and push button isn't really going to happen. But if I flick it back, I can go ahead and just use it without, de-assisted and everything else. So that was a big thing that I really wanted to do. Now this one is kind of left in its original configuration. Now I can always go back to putting the torsion bar in this one as well, which is cool. This one, it'll fly out on its own because it is that assisted opening. So basically all you got to do is you kind of get it started and the torsion bar takes over. So I'll see if I can get it to just not open. It's kind of hard even. Just get it to not. Nah, it's not even going to do it on camera. But yeah, all you got to do is just kind of, the tension starts right there on it. So yeah, very cool. Now, I'll move those two out of the way right now. So the O300, they had the O300, the O300 ST, which is going to have a partially serrated blade. Then you're going to have the the O300 black wash. They might have done a black. They definitely did a black wash, I believe. They probably did a black as well. Then went to O301, which had OD green scales. The O302, which had a flat dark earth scale. And then the O303, which had, the tiger stripes and the black. All right, so that's kind of the series on them. And then recently, I would say last year and a half ago, they released the, let's see if I can get it all on camera. It's a pretty big knife. They released the 0308. Now, it is definitely pays homage to the original O300. They kept the series going and everything else, because ZT will do that too. They'll do a series of knives where it'll be like the O5 is going to be Hinderer, the O9s are going to be Les George, and the O3s are going to be, well, up until recently, those are going to be Ken Onion and technically Mick Strider. So this is the 0308. Now, it's not designed by Ken Onion. Ken Onion has nothing to do with it, and it's not Mick Strider either, but it's definitely pays homage to the earlier 0300s in its design, and its function, and its kind of beefiness and overbuilt aesthetic. So it's not quite the same. It does use the KVT ball bearing system as opposed to the Speed Safe with washers. But it is nice, and so this is one of those knives that, ZT is putting out, and they're putting it out currently. They have a few different iterations of this. This is the one that's got the black scale and the tiger stripe, and it's also a USA made blade. They're a company that they'll do their own anno work on it. So this is like the battle worn stars and bars. And so this is the 0308 BLKTS, so black and tiger stripe right there. So the tiger striping is also different from the way they were doing it previously. Previously it was like an oxide finish on the blade. This looks like more if it's just a stone wash and non-type of stone wash, like a heavy stone wash, and it's masked while they're doing the stone wash. So it's not really quite the same as, the oxide and the stone washing that's left on the blade there. So it's a little bit different. Nice frame lock folder, and this is new. These are available now. It's definitely different. It performs a little differently. It feels a little differently in the hand, but it's nice. you know, I really can't complain about something like this. I mean, I haven't really liked anything that ZT's put out recently. They have a couple of good knives that are still out there. This is a new release that I like, the O308. And they've got the O562, which is a Rick, it's the evolution, the next evolution of the Rick Hinderer knives. And they've got the O640, which is their current, their only current Emerson offering. So, you know, it's not as cool as the O300, the O300 series, and even the O200 series, which I don't have, but I would love to get one of those at some point. You know, it definitely pays homage to these, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not as cool. Yeah, it's updated. It's got 20 CV steel. It's got the KVT bearings. It's got a great action, excellent detent. It's well made. I mean, you could definitely use this knife, and it even has the same style, maybe not the exact same style, but the pivot where you're going to use a 1/2 inch wrench on that one. You'll use a 3/8. You use a 3/8 wrench or socket or something like that to go ahead and adjust the pivots on these. So it definitely kind of stays in that same vein. But you know, I appreciate the fact that they've done this knife, but it's not as cool as these old ones. It just isn't. But you know, it's something that I can appreciate that the company's doing, and they're not completely abandoning their roots when they're putting out something like this. So, you know, kind of moving on a little bit, you know, this right here going into the Hinderers, we've kind of touched a little bit on that. This is the O561. Yeah, O561. So the O560 was a black handle, or a black G10 scale, and they also had an O560 black wash and an O560 black, where it was black blade, black TI. The black wash is going to be more of a stone washed, all black DLC finish, but it's been stone washed and tumbled and things like that. And then they moved on to the O561. And there's a few different iterations of this one out there. You know, where they did updates, where they got a lock bar stabilizer in it and everything else. So when these initially came out, the O560 and the 561, there were some issues with lock stick. And I believe there are issues with the LMAX. Now, granted, yeah, these are LMAX steel. Things on the internet tend to get a little overblown, but you know, there were some reports of you know, soft edges and soft steel and not being able to keep an edge through even minor cutting. I haven't done a whole lot of work with this one, but it seems like the later serial numbers, they kind of fixed the heat treat or whatever sort of issue they were having. And this is a 7689 serial, so it's an older serial number. They did do an update as well where they put a lock bar insert on these. But yeah, it's got the lock bar stabilizer, and this is a Hinderer design. Okay, so they initially came out with the O550, which was smaller. It had steel, not titanium, as the frame lock. That one was assisted. Maybe it wasn't assisted. I can't remember. And then they did the O556, I believe. And then the O560, O561, and the O566. Now, I know the O566 was assisted, but the O561... oh yeah, and they also continue with the O562, which is still currently, to the best of my knowledge, in production. I don't know if they're still producing the CF version, but I know they're producing the titanium, the full TI version. And the O566 was the next evolution of the Hinderer series of knives. Now, they're inspired by both the XM18 and the XM24. So this one's going to be kind of right in between. The XM18 has a 3.5-inch blade. This is the XM24. It's got a 4-inch blade. These have a 3.75-inch blade, so 3 3/4, and it's basically the same length, maybe a little bit shorter in the handle and a little bit shorter in the blade. But so it's in between the XM18 and the XM24. But I would say if you had to really, you know, push it and make a comparison, I would compare it more closely with the XM24, even though it's a little bit shorter, bigger than the 18, smaller than the 24. But yeah, so these were the Hinderer designs. And like I say, they still have the O562, which is a good knife. I mean, it's a different grind. You know, it's their slicer grind, so the grind kind of goes all the way up like that. It's almost like at an angle instead of being straight across. And it's got an extra finger weld in there and all that. And I had one years back. It's a really good knife. I had the CF version. and it's definitely good, but it's been around for a while. I would love to see another collaboration with Hinderer. There's a lot of talk in the community right now about, Rick Hinderer knives, because the whole cease and desist order with transparent knives. In my opinion, it's been kind of funny to watch. I didn't really have a dog in the fight. I don't care one way or the other. I just thought it was kind of fun, and it's been interesting. This is just a stretch 2 in K390 with some micarta scales, just for scale here, because it's kind of like a PM2 in size, so kind of gives you a little reference also if you're not familiar with the XM24. These they were a little thicker in the grind, not super thin behind the edge, and I know the community's kind of trended towards that. Super thin behind the edge and cutting ability and things like that. And these weren't necessarily geared towards that. They were more geared towards still the people that like the hard use folders and the overbuilt, and that sort of stuff right there. And they're really not, like this right here. This is a thin behind the edge, kind of utility knife, and it's going to be a better cutter than any of these three that are on the table right now. But if you're a knife fan, you like certain things, you don't necessarily get it just because it's going to be the best cutting implement. You can get a straight razor, or a utility knife, and that can be the best cutting implement out there. Sometimes you just want things that are big and heavy and cool and everything else. But it kind of is what it is. I'm not the CEO of ZT Knives, but they just released last week. They did. They've been teasing a new release. This is the Les George 0909. This is a heavy big boy right here. All steel liners, KVT bearings, S35VN, and this is kind of based on his Talos design. So yeah, really cool knife right there. Definitely a hard use work knife, no question about it. Maybe on this one right here, washers might be a little more preferable, but I really like this one too. I was just, if you're gonna do some yard work or do some work, this is a good knife to have. Definitely in that vein of overbuilt. But getting back to it, they had that release that they had been teasing, and they were using a video where they were grinding an O630. Now the 06, those are Emerson, and the O630 is kind of like I forget what it's based on the Super Commander or the Commander, where it's kind of like a clip point buoy blade, and it's got the wave feature and everything else, and they're grinding on that knife. And geez, a lot of people, myself included, got really excited because we thought that maybe it was a factory special series, and we thought that maybe they were going to be re-releasing the O300, or I'm sorry, strike that, the O620. When they actually released it, it was a copper scaled version. I'm sure everybody's seen it by now. It was released last week. It was just a copper scaled version of the 0022, the double aught 22, which is a Tim Galian design. I guess I haven't really gotten a whole lot of information on him. So I guess he's in-house. I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything he's done other than the 0223 and the double aught 22. But it's a little knife with like a 2-inch blade, and it's a 2-finger knife, and I guess there's a market for it, but the comment section was pretty lit. I'll just leave it at that. Not a whole lot of support for that little O22, when a lot of people thought that it was going to be the O630. Now ZT said, well, this is old footage. This is the footage that we use for our factory special series. So it's not necessarily indicative of the knife that is going to be made or released. But I think the last time they did it was 2019 or 2020, maybe early 2020, mid 2019, where they did a factory special series. It was the 0562 with the tiger stripes and like blue G10 or blue carbon fiber, something like that. So forgive us, ZT, for not really understanding that, because it's been a few years since you released one. But overall, it was not very well received. There was maybe one positive comment for it for about every 10 to 12 negative comments. ZT handled it graciously. They weren't jerks. I think they did block a couple people's comments or delete a couple comments that they deemed as non-productive. But, You know, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I really wish they'd go back and do something for their base. I mean, they say, you know, the sales are something that indicates what we're going to make. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I don't work for ZT, but I do know a few things about business, and dealers commit to buying a certain amount of your knives and everything else. So yeah, they're gonna buy them and you're gonna sell out of your stock. But I've never seen, now granted, I'm sure it's happened, but I haven't seen it. So this is all anecdotal, nothing else. I've never seen a double lot 22 sold out at any dealer. I've never seen it. Now the copper scale ones probably would, because it's, you know, people are gonna have that fear of missing out and they wanna collect things and everything else. But I'm telling you, ZT, it's not what your base wants. You put out something like this again, or go back into Emerson and do some really sick collaborations, people are gonna go crazy for them. Nobody's saying stop doing the things that you like doing. Now, granted, this harkens back to these overbuilt knives, but you've got other knives out there that are more EDC friendly and oriented towards that. I don't think people are saying stop doing that. I'm not saying stop doing that, at least. But it's like, instead of just doing that, do this too. Do this too, but maybe re-release some of these or update some of these right here. Don't stop doing what you're doing and what's making you money right now, but I guarantee you, you will sell. You bring out stuff like this, it will sell all the time. You release any of the O300, the O200, the 900 series, like the O920, any of these right here, the O560s, any of that series. I've even heard a full TI O550 would be an awesome idea. You can't please everybody, I understand that, but if you did something like that, ZT, it would be really cool. You would definitely sell units. Promise, promise, promise. In any case, I have gone a really long time on this video. I want to thank y'all for checking it out. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Go ahead and give me a subscribe on the YouTubes. Follow me on Instagram at Chuck_Nunface. I definitely appreciate that as well. Leave me a comment. What do you think about the new knives ZT's put out? What did you think about the release if you knew it and you saw it? What do you think about some of their old knives? Do you still hang on to them? Do you regret selling them? I know a lot of people, whenever I post these on Instagram, a lot of people comment, man, I wish I still had XYZ. Double out something, and they wish they still had those old ZT knives, because we don't know how good it is until it's changed and it's not there anymore, and we can't get the same type of things that we were used to getting years back. In any case, thanks a lot, y'all. Appreciate you checking it out. Have a great day, and I will see you next time. Thanks.